Yes, in my lecture, I've tried to provide a background to some of the problems as I see them with the specification of slip resistance in building codes internationally. I think that Spain is doing very well and should be congratulated, but I've used some data from a Spanish thesis that was published last year to show that the requirements that are in the Spanish building code don't really work, that the slip resistance indications that we get when we measure from products that have been just manufactured, they don't retain that level of slip resistance. So while there might be a requirement for a class 3 or a class 2 product, it may start off as class 3, but it may then become class 2 and class 1 as it wears with time. So the system needs changing. The best way of doing that is to adopt an accelerated wear conditioning procedure, and that will then give you a far better indication as to the long-term slip resistance potential of individual materials. And by adopting that as perhaps initially as an alternative method of specification, it should enable the very sensible requirements of lifetime slip resistance to be achieved far more easily. So I've tried to, in my oral presentation and in the written paper, to provide some of the background material so that others can identify the potential problems and to overcome them. And I've suggested that my colleagues at the Slip Resistance Group of Spain are very well placed to access a lot of the information that is missing to enable Spain to have the world's best building code for slip resistance. Oh, most definitely. I think that it's only by appreciating what other people have done that we can learn ourselves. If things were easy, we wouldn't have to keep on working on them year after year, year after year. And by having experts coming and talking amongst themselves in different locations, we can appreciate greater dimensions of the problem and to see how other people are approaching the problem. And I think the presentation I gave today is an obvious example of having done that little bit more research into an area that I knew was being worked on. I've been able to show that the Spanish data that says there's a problem with the building code, and it's Spanish data that is leading the world in potentially overcoming such problems. So if we weren't here, we wouldn't be discussing it.